All right, so questions on the study guide. You can just say thyroid hormone.
The thyroid hormone.
Or T3 and T4.
Okay.
And then the parafollicular, what do they make? Calcitonin. That's the two. Which one were you asking about? Calorogenic effect? Yeah, so that just means that the more calories you burn, the more heat you make, basically.
I tried to Google it and it just kept telling me about growth factor.
So a prohormone is an inactive version of a hormone. That'll later be turned on or chopped, it has like a part of it that's going to keep it inactive. You could chop that little part off to activate it. All right. So what produces thyroid hormone? Beta, follicular, parafollicular, or alpha? It is follicular. What's a prohormone? Inactive version. Thyroidectomy. What cell type makes glucagon? Alpha. And what are two organs whose function is not endocrine, but have an endocrine function? So some of the ones I see on here, heart and kidney, gonads. Somebody put GI tract. This person left it blank because it's a blank quiz. Hypothalamus.
I was putting more than I was like.
Pancreas works. Stomach, there's a lot of right ones on here. There's plenty you could have put. All right, so we got 18 part 2. When I was grading some of the exams, y'all need to think a little more about the why of what's going on, especially in these chapters. I think that's maybe what people are missing a bit of. I don't know, I only graded the back 2 pages. They're not great so far. Let's see.
Yeah, right.
We will see. But I can definitely say, compared to the other tests, you're probably going to be restudying that reproductive chapter for the final. No one did too well on those questions. Like the pill. How does the pill work? Does anyone actually know? It does not trick you into thinking you're pregnant. That's what half of you said.
Because you're ingesting it through the pill.
And therefore, when you get to the sugar pill, instead of the morning after pill,
Right.
which makes you shed it, you get the sugar pill, so it stops for giving you the extra progesterone and estrogen. And then your body thinks.
But doesn't it decrease your LH level?
That would be one of the big keys that you could have said.
You're ingesting the estrogen and progesterone, so your body doesn't produce it itself. That's all I put.
Yeah, so I think, so some of y'all know it.
I know, keep talking, Michelle.
Keep talking, but definitely I'm going to put that back on the final study guide because I think it's something everybody should know is, reproductive system.
That one with the morning after pill.
Yeah, I remember one made you
Pretty
shed
much
and
the
the other
same,
one didn't
except
make
the morning
you
after
shed.
makes you shed.
Right. Anyways, all right. And I think these are, this chapter is pretty challenging to actually remember what order everything goes in or how negative feedback works. So for example, that testosterone question, how does you're trying to stop making too much testosterone. So testosterone tells the hypothalamus to stop making GnRH. That would be the whole answer. And especially for these, don't use any pronouns. It's a lot of people wrote, they put random its in there. I'm I don't know what that it is. Is it testosterone? Is it the testes? Is it FSH? I don't know what it is.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
That could be.
Yeah.
That could be.
Maybe get 1 point here or there.
But I think you actually did, a lot of you knew more than you actually wrote on there. I think. All right, so anyways, what about the old thyroid gland? Did somebody else see it in the cat? Did we look at it a little bit? I don't remember if we saw that. I think we looked at the thyroid. So anyways, it's up in the larynx, kind of up in the neck. And the two thyroid hormones are T4 and T3. You don't have to memorize their names or anything. They're named that way because they've got 4 or 3 iodine atoms. It's one of the few places that you use iodine in your body. So have you noticed, what do they add to salt? Yeah, and that's because before we had like healthier diets where you actually get iodine from other foods, people would get like hypothyroidism from not eating any iodine. So is that like the 20s or the 1900s? Get some goiters. So way back like 1900s, early 1900s, they started putting iodine in salt. And they never really stopped, even though it's probably not necessary anymore, in our country at least. But that's why it's there, in case you were wondering. All right, like everything in this chapter, there's a negative feedback loop involved. I know. All right, so there's 2 stimuli. One is low body temperature, and one is low thyroid hormone concentration. And that signals the hypothalamus to make TRH, which is thyrotropin releasing hormone. You remember, hypothalamus is kind of the boss. Then that TRH goes down to the anterior lobe, the pituitary, and tells it to make TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. Goes into the blood, goes to the thyroid, and it tells the thyroid to make thyroid hormone.
What was the second stimuli?
Low body temperature and what?
Low thyroid hormone concentration. So what does the thyroid hormone itself do, like T3 and T4? The main thing it does is tell all of your cells to increase metabolic rate. Does anybody know what that means? At a cellular level? Do I? Oh, did you? Did we talk about this yesterday?
It's when you're digestive, how it like fasts you digest your calories.
So you're going to break down your glucose. Krebs cycle speeds up. Glucose is broken down faster. Need more increase your heart rate so you can get more blood, more oxygen to all those tissues. I guess one more that we talked about in patho. What do you think it would do to your intestines? Your digestion? Yeah, so what does speeding up digestion mean, do you think? It is going to speed up digestion by having those smooth muscle in the GI tract contract faster and also more secretions of those enzymes that break down the food. Because you're using all this glucose, you need to get some more, which is one explanation. You know, someone who has a fast metabolism, do you think they have lots of thyroid hormone or not very much? They have lots. And what are those people? Maybe you're one of them. What do you hear them saying? Going to the bathroom more, maybe. What about how often they feel like they need to eat?
All the time.
Right? You're like always hungry because you're using up your glucose all the time, and your digestion's very quick. So your stomach gets emptied, it gets absorbed. You're going to feel hungry faster. And there's a pretty clear correlation. Like as you get older, your metabolism slows down because you're making less thyroid hormone. Think about like a 16-year-old or something, right? That's one of the symptoms, yeah. All right, so let's try this one. And you've got 2-page worksheet. On the back is the thyroid hormone feedback loop, one of them, and I'll put the other one up here too. I think so. Oh, look. So try that on your own for a little bit, and we'll do some group work.
I know, I've been here every.
All right, so let's take about a few minutes to talk that over with your group. All right, so any thyroid questions? All right, so let's go on to the C cells and talk about calcium regulation. All right. So C cells make calcitonin. Stimulus is high calcium, and it's going to go to a couple different tissues and help lower the calcium. And some ways that it does that. Do you remember this word? Osteoclasts? What do?
They built
Carve it out. Clast, carve. So they break it down. Blast, build it up. All right, so if you have too high of calcium, what's a good place to store it, do you think? Your bones, right? And the way to do that is block osteoclasts. That's what calcitonin does. If you block the osteoclasts, your bones get denser, more of the calcium stays in there. No. I mean, for the most part, it's better for you. And the second thing, and this is probably a reason that you don't have bone problems, is any extra gets excreted by the kidneys. You just don't reabsorb it. Leave it in the urine. That wasn't on our dipstick thing, was it? I want to get some with calcium in it. So it kind of means, what do you think happens, to most of the calcium you take in vitamins? It's expensive PE. So there's people who say, like, Americans have the most expensive urine, like, in the world. So they're just taking these vitamins, and it's just, the body's like, hey, I got enough. All right. I eat cheese and yogurt and stuff, so we'll just put it in the urine. And
So then, like, have you heard of that disease that, like, the muscle can get like, fibromyalgia, pacifica,
I thought fibromyalgia was, like,
maybe not that.
general pain, like, everywhere, inflammation.
It's like a pain that's mysterious to everyone. That's feeling.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
And some doctors think it's just in your head, but do it.
Fibrodysplasia.
Fibrodysplasia. I do know that
I've seen it.
you've seen it.
Yeah, their
Okay.
muscle literally turns into bone, and they just eventually like turn.
Whoa.
It's really rare, but
Doesn't that happen in Game of Thrones or something?
Oh, what, the people turning the bone? Yes.
they literally like their muscles form into bone,
Crazy.
and they eventually just like turn it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Super, yeah, but anyways, wouldn't that just be like a lot of?
I'm sure it's something to do with the cell types getting confused and turning into the wrong thing. I don't have to read about it. All right, so a way to remember this, because for whatever reason, everyone gets the 2 calcium hormones always mixed up. So you can memorize cats should have collars. I think somebody came up with that. So that stands for calcitonin secreted when there's high calcium. Right. Well, calcitonin, usually they take extra calcium. Because us, do it? In theory. I've never heard anyone taking it. I don't know why. But one of the main things from osteoporosis, maybe we talked about it in 2.1, is estrogen also inhibits osteoclasts. So after menopause, you have low estrogen, your osteoclasts get more active, start breaking down the bone more. Yeah, because it leads to sort of persistently low estrogen levels. Yeah, but it also makes you put more calcium in the urine too. So, yeah, I don't know. Seems reasonable. I should look it up because I bet there's other osteoporosis drugs that'll change the actions of these more specifically than just calcitonin. Most older people do, I think, at least to some level.
Just like most older people have hypothyroidism.
Yeah, my grandma was 58.
Yeah.
That's young. Yeah.
So a lot of it's genetic, and then a lot of it too is how much calcium you get when you're younger and how much exercise you do. Because remember from 2.1, the more exercise you get on your bones, the stronger your body builds them. So that, and smoking lowers your calcium levels. I don't know why though. All right. So cats should have collars. Next up is parathyroid, because it's also in charge of dealing with calcium. It's 4 little dots, little clumps of cells on the thyroid gland behind it, so posterior. They look like little candies on there. That's the part of a body I eat first. It's the parathyroid, little tasty snacks. So if you remember, cats should have collars. Parathyroid is the opposite. So it's stimulated by low calcium, and it does some things to increase calcium in the blood. So it activates osteoclasts and inhibits osteoblasts. So you break down the bone, release some of that stored calcium, and reabsorb more in the kidneys. Tells the kidneys to make calcitrol. It's another hormone that tells your digestive tract to absorb more calcium. Calcitrol, it's also called vitamin D. So what do they add to milk? Because the more vitamin D you have, the more calcium is absorbed in the intestines. Yeah, I think it's in almost every vitamin,
It's
multivitamin.
Because I know for like,
But the best way is exercise, resistance exercise. That's the best way to get your bones strong. Just throwing a bunch more calcium in your body doesn't quite do it as much. So get those weights out and see y'all lifting. Like Ross's brother. He's got strong bones. All right. And maybe I should mention first, why is it important to have steady calcium levels in the blood? What's the range? I got my blood test here. Does anyone remember what calcium did in some process for something somewhere? So it's very important for muscles. Because remember, that's the ion that's released that causes contraction. It's also really important. So that's skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and it also affects your neurons too. Their membrane potentials, how they're firing or not firing. So the body keeps it at a very narrow range, and normal. I mean, look how tight this range is. 8.6 to 10.3. So you got to keep it at just that amount, otherwise you might start to have muscle cramps, muscle problems. And if it gets way too low, your heart won't work, kind of a problem. Neurons start malfunctioning. So that's why we've got 2 hormones, one for too high, one for too low. because too high also causes kind of the same problems. Maybe too much contraction or arrhythmias. So system works pretty well because, I mean, do you start having heart problems if you don't eat any milk or yogurt for a week? You don't. And that's mainly because your bones store like an enormous amount of calcium. And your body would much rather just slowly break down your bones, even if they get weaker, but still be able to keep calcium normal. So your heart works, your muscles work, your neurons keep working. All right, so anyways, got a few on there. So we're trying to keep between 8.5 and 11, which I guess is different from what my little blood result thing says normal is. I don't know which one's right. It's kind of weird. So high calcium, the thyroid responds by making calcitonin. So inhibit osteoclast, put extra calcium in the urine. Then you also have the opposite, parathyroid. And that gets activated if there's low calcium. So then it makes parathyroid hormone, reabsorb more in the kidneys, release it from the bones. So activate osteoclasts, and then make calcitrol, so you absorb more calcium. All right, so which of these is true? I think I didn't turn this off. So I'd agree with even. High calcium is calcitonin, because remember cats should have collars, and low levels activate PTH. All right, so let's practice more with that. So this is question 3. And you can use the ones in the PowerPoint, but I also have this one. And it's got basically both the hormones on it. So you've got if it's too high, if it's too low, kind of all in one diagram. So we're looking for what's the problem if you have too much calcium or too low? What has gone wrong? All right, so take a few minutes to finish up with your group there. All right, any calcium questions? You good? So basically, either I'm asking you like simpler questions about how the system works, or give you the diagram and ask you harder questions like these
That's a trick.
on the test.
Diagram.
What?
I said that's a trick. We don't get diagrams.
If it's a hard question, you do. You've gotten diagrams before. You've totally gotten them.
So we can have, so when's our
More diagrams than
because
this.
this is a pretty quick section, and we only
Yeah, it's like 5 lectures. I think it's the week before your final, which I think is the week after Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, we literally
Yeah.
take this test.
We're going to take a test, and then we're going to have a review day for the
So
final.
we only have like one more lab day then.
Yes.
Or practical or last
We have our lab, yeah, one lab day.
One lab day and a practical. Yeah, because you don't have lab next week.
No.
No class on Wednesday.
Sorry.
You can come if you want.
I would have been one of those people that should have come
Let's see. All right, so I think we'll do pancreas next time. And we'll do pineal, because I don't think we have time to finish the pancreas, so we'll just do it next time. But we could talk about the pineal gland.
Third eye.
What?
Third eye.
Your third eye? Why do you call it that?
On Grey's Anatomy.
Kidneys put their
Girl with chicken.
connection to the universe.
Your pineal gland's your connection to the universe? Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that was the gland that was involved. To ask my wife, she took Eastern religion in college. Maybe she remembers that. All right, so pineal gland. It's up in your brain. Technically in the third ventricle. And the cells that make the hormone are the pineal sites. And they make the hormone melatonin. Does anyone take melatonin? Sell it at Walgreens, health food stores. And basically it makes you sleepy at night. It's like the natural one.
It's in Turkey.
We talked about this yesterday. You're thinking of tryptophan, and that's not true anyways. You're tired after Thanksgiving dinner because you ate 2 pounds of food and drank like 4 glasses of wine. That's why you're tired. So funny. And then like all the grandparents after lunch, they're just like falling asleep at the table, you know? All right, so something kind of interesting. What do you think the signal is to tell the pineal gland to make melatonin? This, what tells it to make melatonin? No. So it's darkness?
Oh, yeah.
So light would inhibit it?
Because I was going to say, like, your phone and stuff keeps you awake.
Yeah, so
Honestly, my
that's
mom
actually this one.
thinks I'm waking up
Because if you notice, y'all been camping or something, right? At some point. Do you notice you get like exhausted? Like you're just like 9 o'clock. You're like, I can go to bed. Like it's dark. I'm like exhausted.
That clock's at like 5 o'clock now.
Yeah, I know.
Is it bedtime?
Yeah, I think that's why.
kids are ready for bed at 6 now. I'm like, damn.
So yeah, and it's actually inhibited by blue light, like I heard some people saying. Blue light, there's receptors in the back of your retina, and they just figured this out like 10 years ago or something, like how it all works. So there's special receptors that blue light activates them, and it goes to the pineal gland, and it says, it's light out, don't do anything, don't make melatonin. No, don't look at blue light.
So is that why looking at your phone, they have like a night?
Mm-hmm.
Because Elliot has those like yellow glasses things that he wears like when he's watching TV.
Oh yeah?
Often like go to sleep faster.
Because watching TV, we do the same thing, right?
Yeah, but even worse, I think, is the like iPads, phones, because they're so like right by your eyeball that it gets that blue light like right in there very quickly, like less than a TV way over there would. So they actually did a study on that, like in one of those fancy sleep labs where you have to go in and they hook you up to machines and take your blood all night and monitor your sleep patterns and everything. And they took half the people and they just like read a book or something. And the other half like were on an iPad for an hour and a half before bed. And then they monitored them, they took their melatonin levels, they tested their sleep patterns. And the group that was using the iPad, they had 22% less melatonin, and they had like worse sleep patterns, however that works. So it's one of those reasons, like you're mentioning, I think every device now you can download like some kind of app that takes the blue light out. So it looks a little red. It's like a red filter. So the one on Android is called Twilight. I don't know what they call the ones on like Apple's.
Night shift or something.
Yeah, is that the?
That's like night something.
And that's because, oh, here's this fancy one. Intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. Those are the ones that respond to that blue light. So obviously best is probably not playing on your phone, but I kind of like to. So I have that Twilight app on there. I do feel like it helps, actually. I try it. And certainly for kids too, like especially grandparents, they always tell us like, maybe your daughter needs to watch some TV before bed. Like, do you really think that's going to help her melatonin or help her go to sleep? Like, probably not. You're getting like telling her body not to make melatonin, not get sleepy. But that's okay. Grandparents don't listen to us. Or science. It's fine. They know. It's crazy. All right, so I'll see you on Tuesday. Don't forget, we do have class on Tuesday. No vacation yet. I wish we didn't, but.